What is up, guys? This is Passport Graffiti back again with another video. And in this video, I wanted to go over and what I don't see a lot of, I would say, content creators talking about or addressing is the truth about dating here in Medellin, Colombia. And I've been living here now, I want to say 8 months continuous and visiting for a month at a time in 2023 for a few months. So I would say I definitely have a good sense of what it is like to date here and basically what you can expect. Now, I'm speaking on mainly my experiences as a mixed race black guy. Your experiences may differ depending on your, you know, nationality or your ethnic background. As I said, I'm speaking more so on a my experience as a mixed race black guy. I would say average looking, average build. I'm not overweight or anything like that. I do work out almost daily, but I'm not, super crazy fit or anything like that. Now, on this list, there is going to be more cons than there are pros. So if you do not want your potential experience, or I would say you don't want dating ruined for you and you want to find out on your own what it's like dating here in Medellin, Colombia, then I would say, cut this video off, find another video to watch. But in this video, I am going to be addressing more cons than I will be doing pros. So I will start off with the pros first, starting off with number one, that is affection. Um, Women here in Medellin, Colombia, when dating, are very affectionate. Now, this is some more than others. In general, they all are affectionate. But what can happen is when you first start dating here, you may get a few girls that are overly affectionate, on the first date right away, holding your arm, holding your hand, hugging on you. Um, this is something that can be definitely very a normal experience here. But you can run into some girls that are not very affectionate right away. Now, I'm not saying that they're not. It's just, from the first or second date, they're not right away. And if you start getting used to it, you start dating girls, and you're getting that experience a lot where they're affectionate on the first and second date. It can seem a little weird or odd when you do run into those girls that are not affectionate right away. But overall, pretty much the majority of the women here are very affectionate. This can somewhat be a con as well because they're affectionate with everyone. It is the culture. They're not affectionate or more affectionate with you because you're special or they like you more. They're just, it's the way they are. What I mean by this can be a con as well is also when girls are friends with you here as well, they also can be affectionate, and that can be a little bit of a mixed signal. Definitely, if you're coming from, I would say, a place like the United States or a Western influenced country where women are not generally like this. Definitely not, girls who are friends. So that definitely can be a little bit confusing for you as well in the beginning. But overall, most women here are very affectionate, not only physically, but with words as well. They do give you compliments, which I know before in the States, the only time I would ever see men get complimented would be on either your height, you had some really exotic eye color, or tattoos, or a cologne that you were wearing. And I think I said height. Those are the only times I would ever see men getting complimented in the United States versus here. You get a lot more compliments more often, and it's not just on the basic things. So that's one of the pros of dating here in Medellin, Colombia. And I want to say, I think these pros, they're probably just pros in general of all of Colombia, not necessarily just Medellin. But I think the cons that I'm going to speak on a little bit later, that's going to be more so specifically geared more to Medellin, although some of them may be more general and apply to just Colombian culture and Colombia as a whole. Now, going into the second pro is that women here are very feminine. This is not, news to anybody. I think most people know that women in South America, definitely here in Colombia, tend to be a lot more feminine with how they dress, how they act. There isn't much masculine energy. Now, I will say I have experienced some, but these are generally from women that are late 30s into 40s. They're career women. They may own their own business, or they may be the head of a business, like a manager or something like that, which this same thing happens in the United States. I would say the more successful a woman is, the less feminine she tends to be. And that's no different here in Colombia or in Medellin. It's pretty much the same, at least from my experience. But overall, the majority of the women here are very feminine. Now, the last pro I'm going to speak on, I think it's general to Colombia as a whole. Women are attractive here, very attractive in Colombia, but you do have, or there tends to be more attractive women here in Medellin. Now, just because they're attractive, it's not, I would say 100% a pro, because there's a lot of girls here that are very beautiful, but don't have anything going for them, no personality, no good character traits. That's all they are, is pretty, and that's all they can depend on. But, if you're just purely going off of this being a pro alone, yes, the women here in Medellin are very beautiful. I think most people know that. This is why a lot of men travel here for that as well. Now, with that said, having the pros out the way, we are going to get into the cons. And as I said, this may burst a lot of people's bubble for wanting to come here and date in Medellin, Colombia. But I think it's important that you all know what you're getting into, what you're dealing with, and at least you have a more realistic perspective. Because as I said, I think most content that is created around dating or just the women here in Colombia it's mostly all good, besides the scopolamine and stuff like that. So starting off with number one on my list for cons, and that is going to be the amount of excuses. I cannot tell you, Colombian women, definitely women in Medellin. I haven't really dated too many women from other parts of Colombia, so I can only speak on Paisa women and women from Medellin, but they are the queens when it comes to excuses. Definitely when it comes to flaking on a date or canceling a date, or just coming up with something. These women never cease to amaze me with the new excuses that they come up with or that I can hear. There's one term that you will hear here, which is que pena, which basically translates in English to what a pity, but it's kind of used more here as like, I'm sorry. But usually when this is said, that there's a excuse coming after it. And generally when they say this, they pretty much expect to be forgiven for whatever fault, they're committing or about to commit or committed, whatever it is. But this is one thing that is very, very common here, is the amount of excuses. And dating here, that can be very frustrating to you, definitely as an American, or, let's just say as a foreigner, if you're not used to that, because Colombian men are very much used to it, but definitely someone like me coming from the United States, not used to this at all. And it becomes very frustrating at times. Not even at times, it's very frustrating all the time that the women here, they just, can continuously come up with these excuses, and then they're expected to just be forgiven, forgot, basically. So this is definitely one of the cons and negative parts of dating here in Colombia. Um, Going into number two, I'm going to touch on is poor communication. Um, I don't know if it's, I don't think it's just me. I have other friends as well that kind of have complained about this as well when we, and generally get together and talk, and we talk about dating. But women here are not very good communicators. This would go into them not being very direct. Um, for example, let's just say you have a date, you plan a date with a girl for tomorrow. You say, hey, we're going to meet at 5 p.m. And the next day comes, and let's just say you're busy, whatever, you don't message the girl. And then maybe around 3 or 4 o'clock, message her and just say, hey, um, you know, are we, I just wanted to make sure we're still meeting at 5 o'clock. And they'll turn around and say, oh, well, I didn't hear from you, so I expected, I thought you made other plans. They won't reach out to confirm. It's not just in that sense as well, it's just overall in general. One thing I had to learn the hard way, and it's taken me almost 8 months to learn, is that Colombian women will not message you first, or they really won't message you at all as far as texting or calling. I will say after they like you, yes, you will get some that will call or text you. But overall, Colombian women, and I don't know if this is more so a Medellin thing or it's just Colombia as a whole, but they believe that if the guy is interested, the guy will write or the guy will call, that it's basically not their responsibility to do that. So I've had situations where I've slept with a girl and the next day, have been busy or whatever, didn't hear from her at all. And when I finally reached out to her, I just said, hey, if I don't hear from, basically, if I don't reach out to you, should I expect not to hear from you? And, basically she got upset at me for not reaching out to her, reaching out to her earlier or sooner. So, definitely it's one thing you have to get accustomed to is being the person to message all the time, to call all the time. And yes, Colombian women are just like all other women, they love attention, and if you're not giving them that, they definitely do get a little sour about it. But overall, you do have to be the one to do, I would say 90% of the communicating. Now when you write, they will respond, but in general, if you're expecting to get a good morning, some will send it, but majority won't. If you're expecting to get some kind of initiated communication from them first, it 9 times out of 10 is not going to happen. There may be the exception to the rule and a few girls out there that do it, but the majority of Colombian women will not message you first. You will have to message them first, and this does, or this can be a little annoying or be frustrating. I know it's something I don't like, but it's something I'm slowly starting to try to get it used to. Going into con three, and this is a huge one for me, might be a huge one for a lot of other men that are planning to come out here and, date or whatever. If you're doing, planning on long term, not something that's just vacation, is the single mother rate or the amount of single mothers. Now, I touched on this in another video. In Colombia in general, it's something about or something around 80% of women here are single mothers. Now, most people think I'm exaggerating when I say that, but once you come here and you start dealing with women on a regular basis, you will see around 8 out of 10 women generally will have kids. And this is from ages 19, all the way up into 40s or whatever. Definitely the really, really pretty ones. The girls who are like nines and tens, for sure expect them to have kids. Now, this is a can be a huge con, or it's a con for me because one, I don't want to deal with raising someone else's kid. I don't want to be financially responsible or expected to provide for someone else's kid. Definitely not another man's kid. And then also too, I'm a little bit selfish in a way where I plan on giving a lot to the woman I'm with, so I want to be put first. And when a woman has a kid here, in general, the first thing that's going to come is work. Women work a lot here. Uh, I would say definitely if they're not, so-called quote unquote independent and they actually have a normal job. Girls who are sex workers, yeah, they probably have a lot more time on their hands because they're not working during the day. But in general, a normal woman who has a regular, job, they work, I would say, sometimes about 12 hours. You can expect from 7 in the morning to 7 at night, or 6 in the morning to 6 at night. They work a lot of hours. So work is going to come first. After that, it's going to come family and kid. And then you're somewhere, below that on the list of priorities. So single mothers is a huge, I would say, con for me. It may be a con for a lot of men as well that plan on coming out here. And, don't get it twisted. You will be expected to provide for their kid. At least most are going to expect you, to provide for that kid. And then also too, is if you ever decide to get serious with them and you want to move them in, that kid is going to have to come along as well. They're not going to just leave their kid with their family and then, you expecting to start some type of life with them. So that's a huge con here as well. It's made it very difficult for navigating dating here for me. As I said, I'm not one. I didn't date single mothers in the United States, and I didn't come to a different country to start. Now, I will say this: there are a lot of very attractive single moms here that will make it very tempting. But I will say, in the end, it's definitely not worth it if it's not something you plan on doing or you want to, take on that responsibility. So that's also a huge con here. Now, the next one, from what I understand, this comes from narco culture. I've heard about it, but not really too educated on it. But essentially, there was a time where, drug dealers were very prevalent here, and they spoiled a lot of the women here, gave them money. So a lot of women got used to this. And this has been said why Paisa culture here in Medellin is this way. But asking for money is another huge con here. It comes in all different ways. And I will say, definitely don't get scammed by it. A few things that I've seen that I've run into, and I definitely want to throw these out there for you guys, just in case you are new to Medellin and you do come across this when dealing with women. It's not something that you end up basically falling for. But one of them is, I need money for a babysitter. Now, this isn't normal. When you come out here, this isn't like the normal culture thing where if a girl has a kid and you want to hang out with her, you have to give her money for a babysitter. Most women here live with their family. And if they have a kid, they're going to leave their kid with their family, who is going to watch that kid for free, not something you have to pay for. Now, in my opinion, this is generally usually a hustle. Girls are only doing it because somebody said yes to it in the past, or have been saying yes to it, and they figured they can get away with it. But it's one of two things, or it's both. One, if they have a kid, they're going to tell you they need you to pay for the babysitter, or they need money for a babysitter. They're going to get the money from you. They're going to leave that kid with their family, and then they're just going to keep that money. And every time you want to see them, you're going to have to give them money for the, quote unquote babysitter. And, or the second thing is they don't have a kid at all, and they're going to just tell you they have a kid and that they have to pay a babysitter. So you'll give them money, and every time you see them, once again, you're going to have to pay for the babysitter. And I've seen this in a couple of different ways. I've most recently had a girl tell me that she needs to pay someone to watch her dog and her cat. I told her, basically, I'm not going to pay for someone to watch your dog or your cat. She's, basically said, oh, well, I need to pay my cousin to do this favor for me. I'm like, well, the whole point of a favor is that someone's doing it for you for free. They're not, asking for any kind of payment. But she was saying that she needed money to pay her cousin, or somebody to watch her dog and her cat. So this will be something that you will get, once again, tons of excuses for. Some women here are so narrow-minded, so short-sighted, that they don't care if you're a good guy or not. They just care about what's in front of them. They care about that day and that day alone. I've had friends who, went on a date with a girl. It may be the first or second date. For example, I had a friend who uh, was supposed to go to the movies with the girl. They went to lunch. The girl basically said, hey, instead of going to the movie, how about we go to this mall where basically there's a lot of electronics at, and you buy me an iPhone 15. And he's, basically said, like, are you crazy? No, I don't, I barely know you. I'm not going to buy you an iPhone 15. The girl proceeded to get upset that he wouldn't buy the iPhone 15, and then basically tried to, change gears and say, oh, well, can you loan me the money to buy an iPhone 15? Now, along with asking for money, this is a very common thing you will hear as well, is, can you loan me? Loan me, just think of this as translating to, can you give me? Because any money that you loan any Colombian here, is not just women, but if you're loaning money to someone, expect not to see that money back, or don't expect to get that money back. So this is a huge con of dating here in Medellin. Like I said, I don't know if this is a Colombia thing. It might be similar in Cartagena, but definitely here in Medellin, it's something you commonly will run into, as women constantly expecting you to financially support them or give them money, even when you barely know them. Like, I understand if you're in a relationship and you've been dating for a while, okay, this may be normal, but not within 5 minutes of a conversation, or right after the first date. And for a lot of you guys, you may not know that a good majority of these girls, what they will do is they'll wait until you've been intimate with them, and then right after that first time you've been intimate, that you've had sex, then they'll hit you with the, oh, I need money for something for university. I need money for my medication for my grandma. The excuses are endless on what they need it for. And I had a friend who had to learn this the hard way, where, he had a girl who he was kind of seeing when he came out here to visit. She basically said she needed $50. He asked me to help him get the $50 to her. I told him, I said, look, man, do not send this money to her. If you send this money to her, trust me, it will not stop. He's like, oh man, it's only $50. And I said, trust me, it will not end there. To make this story short, he ended up sending her the money. So maybe a week after that, she said, or, she hit him up again and basically said, hey, I wanted to learn how to rollerblade. I need money for skates. And basically, to get all the equipment and the skates, it's going to come out to about $250 US. And her justification for it was, oh, I'm going to get some exercise. I'll learn how to skate. And when you return, I'll have a tight ass for you. Basically, these are verbatim words from her. And I told him, I said, look, Marcus, this month, it's going to be, it's going to be rollerblading. Next month is going to be, scuba diving. And we don't even have any water here in in Medellin. It's always going to be something. And you have to think about it this way. If you had an ATM that would continue to keep spitting out money, for free, would you stop going to it? No, you would continue going or hitting up that ATM until it stopped. And that's basically what these women are doing. And you have a lot of guys who, may have disposable income, that are older, or just men in general from the States. They're like, oh, $20, $50, it's nothing. But this is kind of what's getting into the conditioning of these women, that are making them, feel like, oh, it's just easy for me to ask for money without any kind of expectations or having to work for anything. So getting into the next the next con, and that's going to be flaky. If you don't know this, this is just in general a Colombia thing. Maybe Latin America, but more so Colombia. Women here are extremely flaky. I have days where I've planned 4 dates in the same day, and all 4 have flaked. Now, a big part of this can be because of, just simply not building enough rapport. But this also comes into another, I would say, con that I have, which would be language barrier, which I'll talk about later. But um, flakiness is definitely a con here. And a big part of that comes from in Colombian culture in general. Women generally don't like to say no. So you may approach them, talk to them, say, hey, I'd love to take you out. They're going to say yes, just in general, because they don't like to say no. And you may hit them up a couple times and then they may ghost you, or you may, make the plans for the dates. They're going to say yes. And then, come time for the date, they just don't respond or don't hit you back, or, they may make up an excuse, which is very common here. But I've had it happen before where I've made plans for, to meet a girl when she got off work. She's like, yes, we're going to meet. And then as soon as she gets off work, she flakes, or, here comes a bunch of excuses of how she's tired, or it's, 3 drops of rain fell and, she can't go out anymore, whatever it may be. But flakiness is a huge thing here. I would say it's probably worse than United States, at least for me. I've experienced much more flaking here. And doesn't matter, whether you're a white foreigner, a black foreigner, whatever, it happens to everybody, even happens to Colombians. So it's something that you have to get used to. And why this also is a huge con is because the women here, they love to dish it out, but they cannot take it. So, let you flake on a girl and, it's the end of the world. And I've had this happen where, I went out on a couple of dates with girls. A girl, things went well. We were supposed to meet up for another date. And then, for whatever reason, I was sick. I didn't feel well. I hit the girl up and said, hey, I'm not feeling 100%. Can we, see each other another day? I got, attitude with the okay. And then after that, never heard from that girl ever again. And a friend of mine who's lived here for 15 years told me, he's like, in your mind or in my mind, in men's mind, you did everything right as far as it being logical, but in their mind, you basically stood them up or you found a better option or whatever. So, that's what she was thinking. He's like, granted, you were legitimately sick and didn't feel well, but for her, you stood her up. And even though she may have done this to guys 100 times before in the past, it doesn't matter. As soon as you do it to them, they don't like it. And it's the same thing with, being late, which can be another con that I'll talk about as well. So going into language barrier. Now, I'm not fluent in Spanish by any mean. I'm probably at A1 or A2. I do okay between speaking and using a translator. I'm not solely using a translator, but the language barrier, it can be very frustrating. I would say normally in English, when it comes to dating in the United States, I'm pretty, I would say, charismatic. I would say I'm pretty funny. You lose all of that once you are dealing with the language barrier, because even if you try to translate a joke into a translator, a lot of times it's not going to translate the same. It's not going to hit the same. They're not going to get it. And then once you get to a point where you have to, I would say, once you have to explain a joke, it's no longer funny at that point. Some stuff will translate, they will get it, but not all of it. So this can be a huge con of dating, definitely if you're not fluent in Spanish. The other thing is that there's going to be times where you may want to have deep conversations, and it's going to be very frustrating having to go back, and not only for you but for them as well. And a good amount of the women here in Medellin, or I would say definitely in Colombia, they can be very patient, but it's still very frustrating on both ends. to just not understand what each other are trying to say or what you're trying to communicate to the other. And definitely, this is one thing that is very prevalent, or that you will see more once you start trying to get past the surface level and the initial dating, and you're trying to get into deep conversations. This is something that is very, very frustrating and can be a pain in the ass. And I haven't seen too many people really talk about it. So it was definitely something I wanted to talk about as well. Also, this can be very hard for cold approaching. Like I said, most girls here don't like to say no. So, they may be like, oh, okay, when you're trying to talk to them initially, but then, when you go to hit them up, that it may just turn into a dead end. They don't respond or whatever. But also, too, I would say normally when it comes to, um, communicating as well, I normally like to have very witty banter. And this is something else that's very hard to do when you don't speak the language. I lose a lot of that. Basically, you have to understand that a lot of your personality you're going to lose because it doesn't translate over into Spanish, or it's not going to translate well when you're trying to put it through a translator, or you're trying to speak what little Spanish you do know. And that definitely can be very irritating or frustrating, as I mentioned before. It has been for me, and I'm pretty sure it will be for you, or it is in general, something that's very, very frustrating when you're trying to do communicating. So I touched on already, for this next con, women here are not direct. Me personally, coming from the United States, as men, we get used to rejection very early and very often. So for me, if a girl's not interested, I'd rather you just say, hey, I have a boyfriend, I'm not interested, whatever, versus kind of, I wouldn't necessarily say leading me on, but I would say, instead of, kind of just beating around the bush and then ghosting me later, I'd rather you just straight up say, I'm not interested, and we both go on our own ways. Now, this couldn't be a con in some ways, where, maybe you go up to a girl, you go to try to talk to her, cold approach her, you're not getting like disrespectfully or blatantly rejected right away. So it can continue to keep on with some momentum and continue to code approach, or go talk to girls. But for me, I see it as a con, because I've had situations where I may have approached a girl in the gym, say, hey, you look really beautiful, I'd love to take you out, or something to that extent. And they say, oh yeah, sure, we exchange numbers, and then I find out later, they're at the gym with their boyfriend. So to me, it's like, we're both adults. You can communicate properly. Just tell me you have a boyfriend, and I'm cool with that. I can go on about my life. But women here are not direct. They like to beat around the bush around things. So, well, I will say this. Unless it's asking for money, then they're very direct. But even still, with that, they can be indirect as well, where they may not ask you directly, but they're going to hint, they're going to insinuate, they're going to talk about it, and they're going to hope that you will step up or say something or offer to help. That does happen a lot as well, but you do have some that are just very direct, and they will straight out ask you for money. But a lot will do that, where they will kind of beat around the bush and say, oh, well, oh, I have this light bill coming up that, I need to pay. And, oh, it's a pity because they cut my hours at work or whatever. This is very common here. You will hear that. Women not being direct is definitely a con, or can be a con here. Now, next con is going to be the amount of sex workers. Man, so you have your main two kind, which are going to be your straight up pros, the ones who are on the streets. They may be in the clubs. You will see this very prevalent here in Medellin and Parque Jettis. And then also you'll see it in Cartagena, in the kind of old town area, or whatever it's called, that they have there. So you have these type of sex workers. You will have your webcam, which is the next, I would say, step up, is the webcam, your OnlyFans and webcam. And I would say the third type would be the girls who work at massage parlors. Now, one of my biggest fears here is meeting a girl and it's someone who was formerly a sex worker or someone who is a sex worker who is just kind of trying to play in the middle to see if she can find some foreigner who's going to, kind of take care of her and look after her and then decide to, hang it up and retire. But she still has that past. Now, um, they say something like Medellin or Colombia in general is like the capital of webcam models and OnlyFans models of Latin America. And I definitely think that's true because there's so many girls that are into it. This is a huge con for me because I don't plan to date or marry a sex worker. And there are a lot of men here who do come and try to save them. And I do know some men that are currently dating women who were sex workers that they met at, a specific club or whatever, and initially started paying for it, and then started dating them afterwards. For me, it's a huge con because, like I said, I don't plan to date any sex workers, but I guess there are many men who do. If this is something that you're not interested in, this will be a big turnoff for you because you will start to run into them eventually. The women who are looking for mutual benefits is another word for basically pay to play, or girls who are into webcam or into some type of sex work. Me personally, I don't trust any girl that's works in a massage parlor or any kind of spa that does massages for men. Um, there's just always that that in the back of my mind, and also too, just from personal experience, um, just about every massage parlor I've gone to, and I'm not one to really do the whole happy ending, but almost every woman offers to do it, or they're offering some type of sexual service with it. So any women that work in those spas, I'm just not into it. So that is the next con. I would say this is a con too. Is here in Colombian culture, women like to have male friends. Now, I know some guys are for this, some guys are against it, but in general, here in Colombian culture, women don't often go out by themselves or just with other women. They usually go out in mixed groups, or they go out in, yeah, I would say mostly mixed groups. And at least my thought behind this is that men are generally the ones who are paying for things. So there may be some where, girls may ask to split, but in general, when girls go out with guys, guys are the ones that are usually taking care of the bills. So you will get a lot of women here, when you meet them, they'll say, hey, well, let's be friends, or, oh, I'm looking to make friends or expand my social circle. Um, to me, this is just because they want guys that are going to invite them out to do things that they won't have to pay for. This can be a big con, definitely if you're trying to like date seriously and you just have a lot of girls who are constantly trying to friend zone you or, want to be friends. And like I said, it can be very confusing because girls here can be very affectionate. And when someone is telling you they want to be your friend, but they're being affectionate as well, it definitely kind of messes with your mind. Now, with that being said, there are a lot of girls here who meet and date social circles. So, not saying entirely someone who a girl you meet that only wants to be your friend is all of a bad thing, because she may introduce you to her friends and you may end up dating one of her friends. But because people do primarily meet here that way, but it is harder to get into social circles if you don't speak 100% or you're not fluent or at least conversational in Spanish. So that can be going along with the language barrier. It's very hard to get into social circles and really mix in with the culture and groups. So that's it for this video today. These are, the cons of dating here in Medellin, Colombia, or this is just what I feel is the facts, no BS, just putting it out there for you guys. Feel free to comment below if I missed anything, or if you guys have any questions that I didn't answer, and I'll definitely feel free to try to reply to all the comments. Appreciate you guys for watching this long. I didn't intend the video to be this long, but I definitely wanted to get everything covered. And until the next one, peace.